The desert night is silent, except for the whisper of wind brushing against crumbling stone. Somewhere deep inside the ruins of Yazd, an ancient flame still burns, not in the open, but hidden away, protected as though it holds a secret too dangerous to share. For over 2,000 years, fires like this have been guarded, not just as symbols of faith, but as if they were vaults holding something priceless. Imagine stepping into one of these fire temples. The air is warm and heavy, the stone walls blackened by centuries of smoke. In the center of the chamber, an eternal flame flickers, casting dancing shadows across the room. This fire has been burning since before the rise of Rome, before the birth of Islam, even before the empires that once ruled this desert crumbled into dust. And yet, no outsider has ever been allowed to see the deepest sanctum where the priests tend to it. But why? What made these fires so important that kings, conquerors, and commoners alike risked everything to keep them alive? Official history tells us they were simply symbols of purity, representing Ahura Mazda, the god of Zoroastrianism. But the more you dig into the stories, the more unsettling it becomes. There are whispers that these flames were not just symbolic, that they were connected to lost knowledge, maybe even to forces that the ancient priests feared could destroy their world if misused. Conquerors from Alexander the Great to the early Islamic caliphates targeted these temples first, as if putting out the fire meant conquering the soul of Persia itself. Tonight, we are going to follow the trail, from the origins of the fire temples, through the wars fought to protect them, to the secret theories that suggest they hide something far more powerful than religion. Something that, perhaps, we were never meant to know. To understand why these flames mattered so much, we must step back thousands of years, to a time when Persia was not yet an empire but a land of scattered tribes, each living under a vast and endless sky. In this harsh world, fire was life. It cooked food, forged tools, and kept predators at bay. But for the followers of an emerging prophet named Zarathustra, known in the West as Zoroaster, fire became far more than survival. It became the bridge between humanity and the divine. Zoroastrianism, one of the world's first monotheistic religions, is built around a cosmic battle between light and darkness, good and evil. Fire was seen as the purest expression of light, a living symbol of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord who created all that is good. To the faithful, tending the fire was not just ritual, it was participating in the cosmic struggle itself. Each spark was a reminder that truth and order, Asha, must be protected from chaos and lies, Daruj. But unlike other religions, where fire was merely part of ceremony, Zoroastrian fire was kept alive continuously. The temples were not just places of worship but guardians of a living entity, the eternal flame. And this was no small undertaking. Priests, called moghs, would feed the fire day and night, performing elaborate purification rites before approaching it. Even the wood had to be ritually cleansed, and no impure breath could be allowed near the sacred fire. This obsession with purity shaped entire communities. Villages were built around fire temples, and laws dictated how the flame must be protected. Some temples contained 3 levels of fire, each representing a deeper degree of spiritual power, from the fire of artisans to the fire of kings to the fire of priests. The highest grade fires, called Atashgah, took years to consecrate and were believed to embody divine presence itself. And yet, there is something strange about the scale of protection these fires received. Ancient accounts describe fortified temple complexes, guarded as though they held treasure. Secret chambers, thick walls, and even underground channels were used to ensure that the fire never went out, not even during siege or disaster. This level of devotion has led some historians to wonder, was it only faith, or was there something more tangible they were protecting? If the fire was only a symbol, why did invading armies make extinguishing it a top priority, as if it were the very heart of Persian identity? Could the flames have been connected to hidden knowledge, secret rites, or even something resembling technology that has since been lost to time? By the time the Achaemenid Empire rose and Persia became a superpower, these fires were no longer just sacred, they were political. Kings were crowned in the presence of the sacred flame, and state affairs were conducted under its light. To put out the fire was to erase the legitimacy of the ruler himself. In this way, the temples became more than houses of worship, they became power centers, storing not just spiritual energy but the very continuity of the Persian world. And so, these sacred fires became targets. Wherever conquerors marched, they sought to seize or extinguish them, understanding that as long as the flame burned, Persia's spirit would never truly be defeated. If you were to approach one of these fire temples in ancient times, you might be struck by how little they resembled ordinary places of worship. They were not wide, open sanctuaries designed to welcome crowds. Instead, they looked almost defensive, like strongholds planted in the heart of the desert. Many of these structures, particularly the Atashgah temples, were built with thick stone walls and narrow entrances that could easily be guarded. Some were perched on hilltops, as though to command a view of the surrounding land, while others were hidden deep within remote valleys. Archaeologists have discovered remains of tall outer walls, watchtowers, and gates that suggest these sites were meant to withstand siege. Inside, the design becomes even more intriguing. The innermost chamber, called the Atashgah, was typically windowless, with a high, domed ceiling that vented smoke through a precisely engineered opening. This design wasn't just symbolic, it kept the fire's smoke from suffocating the priests, ensuring the flame could burn indefinitely. Narrow corridors led to the chamber, creating a controlled flow of visitors and limiting who could approach the sacred fire. Some ruins show evidence of secret side rooms and storage spaces, the purpose of which remains mysterious. Were they meant to store ritual tools, food, or perhaps manuscripts containing hidden knowledge? Some researchers speculate that the very layout of these temples functioned as a kind of spiritual maze, a journey inward, both physically and symbolically, representing the soul's approach toward divine truth. And then there are the ventilation systems. Ancient Persian engineers designed clever air channels that not only kept the flame burning but could even intensify it. Imagine walking through a dark corridor and suddenly emerging into a chamber where the fire blazes brighter than natural wood could ever burn. To an outsider, it must have seemed like stepping into another world, one where the fire itself had a will of its own. This architectural sophistication raises questions. Why invest so much effort into protecting and enhancing a single flame? Was it merely about religious purity, or was there something about the fire itself, its origin, its composition, its symbolism, that required such careful containment? Some historians argue that the temples were also centers of administration, science, and record-keeping, meaning the fire was only one of many things being guarded. Others suggest the temples were deliberately designed to keep outsiders guessing, to shroud the rites in mystery so that the faith's secrets could never be stolen. What's clear is that these temples were more than places of prayer. They were fortified sanctuaries where the physical, spiritual, and political worlds converged, and where a secret, perhaps still undiscovered, may yet be hiding beneath the ash. No matter how sacred, no fire can escape the winds of history. Time and again, Persia's fire temples became the first casualties whenever invaders crossed the mountains and deserts to claim the land. And each time, the fight to protect the flames became more than a war for survival, it became a war for identity. One of the first great threats came with Alexander the Great. When his armies swept across Persia, they burned palaces, looted treasures, and executed priests. Ancient sources claim that many fire temples were deliberately desecrated. The sacred flames were extinguished, their ashes scattered to the winds, as if snuffing out the fire could erase the soul of an entire people. But the priests were prepared. Legends say they fled into the mountains, carrying embers in clay pots, traveling by night to escape capture. These embers would later ignite new fires in distant temples, keeping the lineage of the flame alive. It was an act of defiance, a statement that even in conquest, the divine light would not be extinguished. Centuries later came the Arab invasions. The rise of Islam brought sweeping change to Persia, and the fire temples once again became targets. Many were destroyed or converted into mosques. The Moguls were given a choice: abandon their faith or flee. Yet once again, the fire survived. Zoroastrian refugees carried it east, into India, where it burns to this day in the fire temples of the Parsi community. The repeated targeting of these fires raises unsettling questions. Why were they such a priority for conquerors? Was it merely to crush resistance and impose new belief systems, or was there a deeper motive, a need to erase whatever knowledge or power these temples might have contained? Some historians argue that by extinguishing the flames, invaders symbolically reset the cosmic order of Persia, claiming dominion over both body and spirit. Others suggest a more pragmatic reason: these temples may have been repositories of wealth, archives, or scientific instruments that conquerors wanted to seize, or suppress. What remains undeniable is that each attempt to extinguish the fires only deepened their legend. The image of priests risking their lives to protect a single glowing ember transformed the flame into something more than a ritual. It became the very heartbeat of Persian resilience. If the sacred flames were the heart of Persia, then the Magi were its mind. To the outside world, they were simply priests, guardians of the fire. But within Persia, the Magi held a far greater role. They were astronomers, healers, philosophers, and keepers of a wisdom that stretched back into prehistory. Greek historians wrote about the Magi with a mix of fascination and fear. Herodotus claimed they could interpret dreams, read the stars, and even manipulate fate. To the Persians, their knowledge was a gift from Ahura Mazda, but to outsiders, it sometimes looked like sorcery. The very word magic is believed to have been derived from magi. The Magi's duties were complex. They performed elaborate purification rites, maintained the sacred fires, and recited ancient hymns that were said to keep chaos at bay. But they were also scholars. Some accounts suggest they tracked planetary movements, predicted eclipses, and advised kings based on celestial signs. Others say they were the first to categorize herbs and minerals, creating early forms of medicine. This mix of religion, science, and power made them both respected and feared. They were kingmakers, literally. No Persian ruler could ascend the throne without the blessing of the Magi. Their word could legitimize an emperor or doom a dynasty. For this reason, conquerors who toppled Persia sought to control or eliminate the Magi, knowing that as long as they survived, the old order could one day be rekindled. And yet, the greatest mystery surrounding the Magi is what knowledge they kept hidden. Zoroastrian texts hint at forbidden teachings, secret doctrines reserved only for the highest initiates. Were these simply spiritual truths too complex for ordinary followers, or something far more dangerous? Some researchers believe the fire temples doubled as libraries or observatories, containing scrolls and instruments that held advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and natural science, knowledge that might have seemed supernatural to outsiders. Others suggest the Magi preserved stories of earlier civilizations, perhaps even cataclysms that destroyed them, warning future generations not to repeat their mistakes. Whatever they guarded it well. The secrecy surrounding their rites has left us with tantalizing fragments but no clear answers. Even today, many of their rituals are closed to outsiders, leaving scholars to speculate whether the Magi were simply priests of fire, or custodians of a legacy humanity is still not ready to understand. At first glance, the eternal flames of Persia seem purely symbolic, a religious devotion to light, purity, and order. But when you study the mechanics behind these fires, the story becomes stranger. Could these flames have been more than ritual objects? Could they have been powered by something we might call technology? Some fire temples, particularly those built near natural gas vents, may have harnessed these underground fuels to keep their flames burning indefinitely. Archaeologists have found evidence of channels carved into bedrock, possibly to direct gas upward into the chamber. If true, this would make some of the fires self-sustaining, burning for centuries without constant human intervention. Imagine the effect this would have had on an ancient visitor. You enter a hidden chamber, purified and fearful, and behold a flame that seems to spring from the earth itself, unquenchable, eternal, alive. To a pre-scientific mind, this would be nothing short of divine. But what if it wasn't just natural gas? Some researchers suggest the Magi may have created chemical mixtures to keep the fire burning with unusual brightness or color. Ancient texts hint at a royal fire that was fed not with ordinary wood, but with a secret preparation. The formula was so sacred that its misuse could mean death. Could this have been an early form of chemical engineering, a controlled reaction designed to produce light, heat, and all? Skeptics argue that such theories overcomplicate what was simply a spiritual tradition. Yet the temple's careful engineering, their smoke vents, airflow systems, and fireproofing, suggests an almost scientific precision. Why build so meticulously if the fire's meaning was purely symbolic? The contrast between these views is striking. Was the fire a metaphor, meant to inspire the faithful, or was it a literal power source, a secret the priests feared might fall into the wrong hands? Some fringe theorists even claim the temples might have been sites of lost energy technology, perhaps using the Earth's natural forces to produce heat and light in ways we still do not fully understand. Whatever the case, the effect on society was profound. These flames became more than religion, they became centers of power, attracting pilgrims, rulers, and scholars from across the empire. Each fire temple was a place where myth and science blurred together, where the divine and the technological were one. And that is perhaps the greatest mystery of all, were the Magi simply worshipping fire, or were they guarding a force that could change the world? For centuries, the secrets of Persia's fire temples lay buried, their sanctuaries reduced to rubble, their fires extinguished or forgotten. But in recent decades, archaeologists have begun to unearth what lies beneath the ashes, and what they've found only deepens the mystery. Excavations at sites like Takht-i-Soliman, Nakshi-Rostam, and Niasar have revealed layers of construction that go far beyond a simple shrine. Beneath the main fire chamber, researchers have discovered complex foundations, subterranean passages, and even water channels that may have been used in purification rituals. Some tunnels appear to connect separate buildings, suggesting that the temples were part of larger ritual complexes, or perhaps escape routes for priests during invasions. One of the most intriguing discoveries is the presence of unusual altars and platforms whose purposes remain unclear. Some are carved with geometric patterns that do not match known Zoroastrian symbolism. Others seem designed to hold objects that are now missing, leading some to speculate that precious relics, manuscripts, or even technological devices were once stored here before being hidden away or destroyed. Fragments of pottery and tools found at these sites also hint that fire temples may have doubled as research centers. Chemical analysis of some residue suggests that special fuels or incense were prepared here, perhaps using recipes now lost to history. Imagine what secrets might be contained in a single surviving scroll, buried somewhere under the desert, a scroll that could reveal how the Magi created their eternal flames. There are also clues pointing to astronomical alignments. At certain temples, the fire chamber is positioned so that sunlight or moonlight enters through a single opening only on specific days of the year, such as solstices. This suggests that the priests were tracking celestial events, turning the temple into a kind of cosmic clock. And then there are the mysteries that remain unsolved because evidence has vanished, or been deliberately erased. Some ruins show signs of systematic destruction, smashed altars, sealed tunnels, scorched walls. It's as if someone wanted to make sure that whatever was kept here could never be recovered. These archaeological discoveries have given us pieces of the puzzle, but not the full picture. Each find raises new questions. What else is still buried beneath the sands of Iran, waiting to be uncovered? And if we do find it, will we finally unlock the truth, or uncover a secret that was never meant to be known? After centuries of mystery and decades of excavation, we are left with fragments, tunnels leading nowhere, altars whose purposes we cannot explain, fires that seem eternal. And so, inevitably, theories rush in to fill the gaps. The scholarly view mainstream historians argue that there is nothing supernatural or conspiratorial about the fire temples. They insist these were simply places of worship, their complexity reflecting Persia's deep religious devotion. The secret chambers, they say, were practical, used for storage, ritual preparation, or to protect priests during times of danger. To them, the eternal flame was not a mystery but a marvel of devotion, kept alive by human hands for centuries. The mystical view, but to others, this explanation feels too simple. Esoteric traditions claim the Magi guarded more than fire, they guarded cosmic truth. According to Zoroastrian mystical texts, the fire was a gateway between worlds, a place where divine wisdom could descend into the human realm. These texts hint at hidden teachings passed only to initiates who had undergone years of spiritual training. Perhaps the secret was not an object, but a state of consciousness, one that could grant power over nature itself. The lost knowledge theory. Then there are those who see the fire temples as ancient repositories of science. They suggest that the Magi preserved astronomical records, chemical formulas, and technological knowledge from civilizations that came before Persia, perhaps even before recorded history. To these theorists, the temples were like proto-universities, centers where humanity's earliest science was hidden away, only to be lost or suppressed after waves of conquest. The conspiratorial view. And finally, there are the most provocative claims. Some fringe researchers argue that the fire temples were sites of advanced energy technology, perhaps even remnants of a lost global civilization. They suggest that the conquerors who tried to extinguish the flames were not just suppressing religion, but seizing control of a power source. It is a controversial idea, and yet, it lingers, precisely because so much about these sites remains unexplained. Each theory pulls us in a different direction, leaving us with one haunting question: were these temples mere monuments to faith, or vaults holding secrets humanity is still not ready to confront? The story of the fire temples is not just ancient history, it is still unfolding today. Scattered across Iran and India, a few dozen sacred fires still burn, some of them said to have been kept alive for over 1,000 years. And yet, if you wanted to see one in person, you might find the doors closed. Access is tightly controlled, and the rules surrounding these sanctuaries are as strict as they were in antiquity. Visitors are rarely allowed into the inner sanctum. Even Zoroastrians themselves must undergo purification before approaching the sacred fire. Outsiders are usually kept behind glass barriers, allowed only to glimpse the flame from a distance. Photography is forbidden in many temples. Priests, or mobs, continue to maintain the flame with ancient rituals, wearing mouth coverings so that their breath cannot pollute the sacred fire, the same practice described in texts written more than 2 millennia ago. This secrecy fuels speculation. What exactly is happening behind those closed doors? Some argue that it is simply about preserving tradition, protecting a fragile faith that has dwindled to fewer than 200,000 followers worldwide. Others suspect that the secrecy hides something deeper, rituals or knowledge that the priesthood has decided the modern world is not ready to handle. Even archaeologists face barriers. Many fire temple sites remain unexcavated or only partially studied due to political, religious, or cultural sensitivities. In some cases, digs have been halted midway, leaving unanswered questions buried beneath the earth. It is as though history itself resists revealing what lies hidden. For the Zoroastrians who keep these flames alive, the secrecy is not about mystery but survival. They believe that once the sacred fire is defiled, it loses its power, and with it, a piece of the cosmic order is lost. And so, they guard it not as a relic of the past, but as something vital for the present. Yet, for those who stand outside the temple gates, staring at a flame they cannot approach, the mystery only deepens. What could be so powerful that it must be kept burning, unseen, generation after generation? And so, we return to the desert night, where a single flame dances in the darkness. It burns as it has for centuries, its light casting long shadows over crumbling stones. No matter how many empires have risen and fallen, no matter how many armies have tried to snuff it out, the fire endures. We have traveled through history, from the birth of Zoroastrianism, to the fortresses built to guard its fires, to the conquerors who tried to erase them from memory. We have followed the footsteps of the Magi, wondered what secrets they kept hidden, and sifted through the ruins they left behind. And yet, for all our searching, the heart of the mystery remains just out of reach. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the fire was never meant to be fully understood, only experienced. To the priests who guard it, the flame is not a symbol but a living reminder that the world is still locked in a cosmic struggle between light and darkness. Every day they feed the fire, they are declaring that the light must win, that order must triumph over chaos. But to others, the flame is a riddle. What if the secret is not merely spiritual but practical, knowledge, technology, or history deliberately hidden from us? Could the fire temples be guarding not just faith, but information about humanity's forgotten past? If such knowledge exists, what might happen if it were revealed today? This is the question that lingers as we leave the ruins behind. Are these fires merely the last embers of an ancient religion, or are they guardians of a truth so powerful it could change how we see the world? As the screen fades to black, the image of that lone flame remains, flickering, alive, defiant. Perhaps it is not we who protect the fire, but the fire that protects us, reminding us of something we have almost forgotten, that some mysteries are meant not to be solved, but to be kept burning, lighting the way for those who dare to seek.